Good evening, dear students. It is our third class on the story The Eyes Have It. Already I took 2 classes with you regarding the text The Eyes Have It, and possibly you have grasped the story as well as enjoyed the story well. Anyway, today we are towards the last portion of the story. Today's class is about the ending portion and there is a twist. After that, I will discuss with you various types of MCQ questions as well as 2 marks and 5 marks questions gradually, class after class. Anyway, I finished with you on that portion. We will soon be at your station, I said. That means after their conversations going on while the train was moving on, and after the remark was made from the part of the narrator that you have an interesting face and that an interesting face can also be pretty, the station for the lady comes and our narrator said suddenly, "We will soon be at your station." I said, "Thank goodness it is a short journey. I can't bear it sit in a train for more than 2 or 3 hours." That means the lady does not like at all a long journey by a train. She said that she couldn't tolerate to sit in a train for more than 2 or 3 hours at a stretch. Yet I was prepared to sit there for almost any length of time just to listen to her talking. But the narrator somehow began to like her talking, and therefore she soliloquized that. Therefore, the narrator made a soliloquy. He made a soliloquy. The narrator made a soliloquy that he was prepared to sit there for almost any length of time to hear her talking. Her voice had the sparkle of a mountain stream. That means her voice had a clarity as well as ringingness of the mountain stream. It has a similarity with the ringing sound of the mountain stream. As soon as she left the train, she would forget our brief encounter, but it would stay with me for the rest of the journey and for some time after. The author knows, or the narrator knows, that when the lady would depart from the train, of course, she would forget it, but the narrator wouldn't forget it at all. After that, the narrator heard the whistling of the train. That means the engine again began to move. The engine's whistle shrieked. The carriage wheels changed their sound and rhythm. The girl got up and began to collect her things. I wondered if she wore her hair in bun or if it was plaited. or perhaps it was hanging loose over her shoulders, or it was cut very short. As the narrator is blind, as the narrator cannot see the cut of her hair, the narrator imagines what may be the type of the cutting of her hair. Was it plaited, or hanging loose, or in bun, or cut very short, not needed to be braided at all? The train drew slowly into the station. Outside, there was the shouting of porters and vendors and a high-pitched female voice near the carriage door. That voice must have belonged to the girl's aunt. As the blind persons are very sensitive to the sound, the aunt of the blind person, blind lady, made a very loud cry so that the girl could recognize her voice and can depart from the train at that particular station. When the train came into the station, there are so many heterophonic sounds of the porters, vendors, along with a high-pitched female sound, and it must be the sound of the girl's aunts. "Goodbye," the girl said. She was standing very close to me, so close that the perfume from her hair was tantalizing. That means it was making a feeling, mesmerizing feeling, having a mesmerizing effect upon the narrator. I wanted to raise my hand and touch her hair, but she moved away. Only the scent of perfume still lingered where she had stood. That means, after some time standing there, the lady got down from the train at that particular station. But the scent, the perfume of her hair remained for some times. There was some confusion in the doorway. A man getting into the compartment stammered an apology. That means some kind of problem during the phase of getting down, getting up and down. And a young gentleman, he somehow got into the train and stammered an apology. "Oh, sorry, like that." Then the door banged and the world was shut out again. That means the door banged and now the train is ready to start again. I returned to my berth. The guard blew his whistle and moved off. Once again, I had a game to play and a new fellow traveler. That means a new game to play. The narrator is conscious that he is playing a game of seeing, though he cannot see. It's a shrewd story about two shrewd blind men, blind persons, one man and the other woman. Anyway, a new fellow traveler got into the compartment, and the compartment is now closed and the train began to move, and the narrator again played the game of guessing, played the game of seeing. The train gathered speed. The wheels took up their song and the carriage groaned and shook. I found the window and sat in front of it, staring into the daylight that was darkness for me. He confessed that though it was dark daylight, but to him it was a complete darkness because he is blind. So many things were happening outside the window. It could be a fascinating game, guessing what went on out there. As he cannot see, as he cannot look outside the world, what he can only do the game of guessing, the game of imagining. The man who had entered the compartment broke into my reverie. That means he was in a kind of trance. He was in a kind of imaginative mood. In a kind of imaginative mood. Reverie. Reverie means daydream. He was dreaming. And it was a kind of daydream or in a kind of imaginative mood, and that mood was broken by the man, the last man who entered the compartment. You must be disappointed, he said. I am not nearly as attractive as a traveling companion as the one who just left. The man made a comment that the companion, that is the last passenger, was a lady, and she may be a very comfortable companion to you, an attractive companion to you, maybe, but I am not so. I am a very rough, cut and dried companion, and therefore, sorry, you must be disappointed. I may not be an attractive companion, traveling companion to you. She was an interesting girl, I said. Can you tell me, did she keep her hair long or short? And whether she had long hair or short hair, can you tell it? I do not remember, he said, sounding puzzled. That means, what type of question is this? I was busy in getting into the train, and during the time of getting into the train, getting into a compartment, can anyone notice whether a passenger who was getting down had long hair or short hair? And therefore he was puzzled. It was her eyes I noticed, not her hair. It is very practical one, because when someone goes down or gets down, we at first confront his or her eyes, not the backside. Isn't it? And therefore it is very practical one, rational one. He said, it was her eyes I noticed, not her hair. She had beautiful eyes, but they were of no use to her. She was completely blind. Didn't you notice? Finally, the new passenger broke or destroyed the reverie of the narrator. Now, we find that both of them cheated each other. If the narrator cheated the girl to reveal that he was blind, the girl tactfully and very artfully cheated the narrator that she was blind. A man from the world of rationality comes and who has a very minute eyes to observe that the girl must be blind while she was getting down from the train, destroyed the reverie, destroyed the trance for the narrator. He made a very dry comment that she was completely blind. Didn't you notice? The story ends here. And we learn from that, from the story, that It is the story of two persons, two blind persons, who have completely cheated each other into believing that they are with eyes. They cheated each other with the help of their fine sensitivity to the sounds, fine ear for the sound, as well as by their power of imagination. Now, you have to understand the appropriateness of the title. Why is the title said so? Just think it again and again about the title, The Eyes Habit, and I will discuss it in my next class with you. Thank you.